Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Monday. It comes prior to Wang's attendance of the annual general debate of the UN General Assembly. For more details on this, let's talk now live to Nathan King, who joins me from New York. Nathan, hi. So could you brief us on Wang Yi's agenda for his visit to the United Nations?
Well, there's a lot on his plate. First of all, obviously, the DPRK, as mentioned there in the report, the Chinese plan for actually calming tensions on the Korean Peninsula by a pullback of US war games in return for a freeze on ballistic missile and nuclear testing by Pyongyang has got a lot of backers, but most importantly, the US is not there yet, and the US is still using rhetoric about military action as well. So both he and others on the Security Council and the wider global community, which of course is here in force this week, will be pushing the US to basically confirm that a diplomatic solution is the only way forward. Also, remember, we're talking about development here at the United Nations, and reform. There's a lot of push by the US to reform, but China really wants the reform to come from the developing countries, to have more voice in this organization. There's a big feeling here, not just amongst China but others, that the permanent 5 members of the Security Council have too much say over the agenda of the United Nations and also the resources as well. Terrorism and terrorism cooperation also an important part, and of course the crises that we've been mentioning: Yemen, Syria, continued humanitarian crisis in Africa as well, consuming Wang Yi's agenda. As a permanent 5 member of the Security Council, you can't evade it. There is a big meeting on Thursday at the Security Council about effective use of sanctions when it comes to non-proliferation, especially the DPRK. Wang Yi will be part of that as well. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the US and China separate their national differences, if they can, to come together in terms of a way forward on the DPRK. The US has been pushing for a complete oil embargo, as we know, perhaps potential naval interdiction or even a blockade going forward. Beijing is resistant to that, wanting to leave the room open, of course, for diplomacy and not create too much stress on Pyongyang, which could lead to misunderstandings.